From the very first moment he saw her, something inside him froze, not out of fear, but out of recognition, as if life had suddenly placed a mirror in front of him and demanded he look closely. It happened in a small cafe on a winter morning when snowflakes pressed like tiny hands against the fogged-up windows and everyone seemed wrapped in their own quiet worlds. But the silence cracked the second the woman walked in with the burn-scarred girl beside her. The child sat down nervously, her shoulders tucked inward, as if she were trying to fold herself into a place small enough to hide the scars that crossed her cheek like fading lightning. People glanced at her, some with pity, others with that uneasy curiosity strangers often carry without realizing how heavy it feels on the ones being stared at. And standing only a few steps away, holding his coffee and trying to calm his own trembling heart, was the single dad who everyone quietly assumed would never accept someone like her. If you believe kindness and second chances can change a life, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Thread. Your support keeps stories of hope alive. For months, Daniel, who had been raising his 8-year-old daughter Lily alone, carried the weight of a guilt he rarely spoke about. His wife had passed away in a house fire 3 years earlier, a fire he couldn't forget no matter how often people around him tried to assure him it wasn't his fault. He had gotten out in time. She had not. And though Lily survived with him, she had grown quieter and more closed off after losing her mother. Daniel often wondered if she secretly blamed him, or if she simply no longer knew how to trust the world. Every winter felt like a reminder of what had happened, the coldness, the helplessness, the suddenness with which life can collapse without warning. On this particular morning, Daniel had brought Lily to the cafe after school canceled classes due to heavy snowfall. He thought a warm drink, a quiet room, and time together would help soften the day. He didn't expect their lives to intersect so sharply with someone else's. The burn-scarred girl, sitting only a few tables away, looked around with wide yet guarded eyes. She held her cup carefully, using both hands, as though afraid something might slip through her fingers. Her mother, tired but patient, whispered encouraging words only she could hear. Something in the girl's expression, a blend of fear, hope, and resignation, pulled at Daniel like a thread that had been waiting years to be tugged. People around the cafe murmured softly, pretending not to stare but failing each time their gaze lingered on the girl's face a second too long. Lily watched them all with a cautious expression, especially Daniel, trying to understand why her father kept glancing at the child across the room. When Daniel noticed the girl attempting to hide behind her hair, his chest tightened. It wasn't her scars that struck him, it was the loneliness behind them, the same loneliness he had seen in his daughter's eyes after the fire, the same loneliness he saw sometimes in his own reflection. He moved toward the counter to order pastries for Lily, but his steps slowed when he heard a couple whisper, wondering aloud how someone could bring a child looking like that into public, as if the girl were something fragile that should be tucked away. Their tone wasn't cruel, but careless enough to wound. Daniel looked at the child again. She had heard them. Her fingers curled tightly around her cup, knuckles widening, shoulders rising with the instinctive bracing of someone used to judgment. It was in that moment Daniel understood what he had to do, though he didn't yet know how to start. When he returned to Lily's table, he noticed the girl had dropped her napkin near the walkway but seemed too nervous to stand and pick it up, fearful that more eyes would land on her. Daniel bent down, picked it up gently, and handed it to her. The small gesture seemed to shock everyone around them, so simple, so normal, yet so unusual in a world where people often don't know what to do with someone who looks different. The girl stared at him, unsure whether to speak or shrink further, until her mother gave her a soft nod of reassurance. Daniel smiled at her, not out of pity, but out of genuine warmth he hadn't felt himself in years. It was a smile that didn't see scars, only a child who deserved to feel safe. Lily watched quietly, her young eyes studying her father's face, searching for something familiar in the tenderness he offered the girl. She had seen him sad, broken even, but rarely this gentle in a way that seemed to reach beyond his own pain. The girl's mother explained softly that her daughter's name was Ava, and that she was recovering from a fire accident that had happened over a year ago. The words, fire accident, hit Daniel like a punch. It felt as though someone had opened the door to a room he'd kept sealed inside himself. Suddenly, his memories flooded back, flames, screams, time slipping like sand. But instead of drowning him, the pain connected him to the moment unfolding before him. He understood Ava's silence, her posture, the way she hesitated to meet anyone's eyes. He understood her fear because he had lived inside it too. Ava's mother looked at Daniel with cautious hope, as though expecting him to pull away the moment he learned the truth. Everyone around them seemed to expect the same. They assumed the single dad would retreat, that the scars would be too much for someone who still carried his own. But instead, Daniel extended his hand, not dramatically, not for attention, but with quiet sincerity. His hand trembled slightly, not from fear of her scars, but from the overwhelming sense that this moment meant something far larger than he could yet comprehend. Ava hesitated before slowly placing her hand in his. Her fingers were small and chilled, trembling like a leaf caught between wind and stillness. But Daniel held it gently, grounding her in a way that made the cafe fall silent. Even Lily leaned forward, as though witnessing something sacred. The room, once filled with murmurs and glances, softened into a stillness that felt like the first breath after a storm. Something shifted inside Daniel the moment her hand touched his. It wasn't healing, not yet, but it was the beginning of it, a crack of light breaking through the heavy walls he'd built around his heart. He realized then that pain doesn't divide people, it's the lack of understanding that does. And when two wounded hearts recognize each other, compassion becomes the bridge they never knew they needed. As the morning passed, Lily shyly joined Ava, offering her one of the pastries Daniel had bought. The two girls exchanged quiet smiles, and for the first time in a long while, Daniel saw a flicker of the old light in his daughter's eyes. Ava's mother watched them with visible relief, perhaps realizing that kindness often arrives from the most unexpected places. And Daniel felt something lift from his chest, a weight that had been there for years, shifting just enough to remind him that moving forward didn't require forgetting, only choosing to keep walking. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep bringing emotional, inspiring stories to the world. Before we close this story, please comment below, kindness matters. Your words might inspire someone else today. And so, on a snowy morning inside a small cafe, while strangers watched with softened hearts, a single dad held the hand of a burn-scarred girl, not out of obligation or pity, but out of understanding, compassion, and the belief that no child should ever feel unworthy of being seen. Sometimes, the most beautiful healing begins with the simplest touch.
Igual es una de las famosas realidades. Es que la realidad de los hinchas es el mejor, es la mejor realidad de la historia. River Boca es el partido más importante del mundo. Después viene Barcelona Real Madrid. Pero por escándalo. Es súper clásico. Es por escándalo la rivalidad más importante del fútbol. No hay otra.